Hey, y'all. It's Tuesday, September 17th, and I am Rob, that developer dad. And I still am on hopefully, the climb up to normalcy from my dance with Miss COVID. I'm still hawking up goblins every few minutes, so that's no fun. But we're going to keep at it. Yesterday, I talked about state containers or context containers and ways to hold the context that we're going to need for our actual application calls and stuff like that throughout the application. And started in the afternoon trying to figure out a way to hold those in the server's memory so that that information would be available to the other parts of the application as needed. And I stumbled and struggled, and eventually I just said, you know what, I got homework to do, and ended the afternoon stream after I was running overtime and being unsuccessful with it. So I figured it out, and it's a little bit surprising in the way that I needed to do it. It's a little odd, a little peculiar, but I did get it sorted out and tore out all of the stuff that I don't need from Program CS. So yesterday I had done some things with middleware and trying to hook it into the authentication pipeline and all of that stuff. And I pulled all of that nonsense out. So down here, I used to have a line somewhere in here where I would add in the context container class that I had created as a scope service, and I had added a bunch of stuff to the OIDC extensions somewhere in here. Sorry, I've got a little bit of the brain fog. I had added some code inside here where we're setting up the claims principle. I tore it out of there, and I had an app state or an app context middleware that I had created. Well, I deleted that class and ripped it out of the app dot use whatever stuff, and I replaced it with actually a Razor component that I've called ApplicationStateProvider. Pardon me. And set up the state as a cascading value that gets passed down to anything inside this child content tab here. And the child content is just a render fragment parameter. I'll show you how that's set up in a second. And then we've got a public property on this app state provider called app context. And then when it's initializing, we do some things to go out and fetch the user context if it hasn't already been set, and set that on the app context object. And it all gets saved out to browser, what is it? Protected browser storage? Yeah, protected session storage. Now, what that means is that application state information is locked to that browser tab. So when the browser tab closes, that state information goes bye-bye, and it starts all over again the next time you open up the application in a new browser tab or a new browser instance or whatever. That felt like the best combination of ways to do it that I could come up with. We don't really need to store the user information on the client machine in between sessions at this point. I don't have any use cases that require that. So when I do, we'll do this exercise again to figure out the best, safest, most secure for my end users way of storing that state information on their local machine. So this gets initialized, and that state object, or actually this whole component, gets passed down through the render tree of anything that lives inside child content. So I wanted this to be available to quite literally anything that might get loaded in, and I didn't want to recreate it for every page. So, following the advice on Microsoft Learn, I wrapped it around the routes component. So anything that gets rendered inside here now has access to that application state information. And I'll show you how I am using it in the Create NPC page model. Here's that. And then up here, I overrode on parameters set async, so that as soon as all the parameters on the page model object are set, it queries the app context for the current user. And that true parameter basically just says, okay, if the current user isn't already in the application context, recreate it from the HTTP context. And then there's another parameter with a default value that says if it's still null after that, crash the app. And then as long as user isn't null, I set a local property called current user, and it's ready for us to use. So what do I do with it? Well, last night I kept going a little bit, and let's see here. Inside NPC List.razor.cs. Now I started to implement this, but I stopped because I realized, oh, I'm getting into stuff that I want to do tomorrow. Let's see here. Where is execute filter? Let's go to the definition on this. Oh, pardon me. I need a quick mute button for that nonsense. So here inside execute filter, the second thing we do after we make sure that we're on the correct page state is we get the current user, and if the user is null, we bounce. And then we just make sure our NPC services exist. And I added a property to the NPC client filter. Let's take a look at that. This guy wasn't here yesterday. So I just added a UserId property to the NPC client filter. I'm assigning it here. And then I call filter townsfolk. And it was roundabouts there that I stopped actively adding code to make this filter work, because I realized, oh goodness, I need to set the user ID on all of those different NPCs that I have stored up in Azure. And so I set that, and then I realized, oh no, the JSON deserialization is choking because it thinks user ID is going to be an integer. And so I did a bunch of other fixing of things while I was in there. I'm going to open a new window, and I'm going to do this stuff on my other monitor here because I don't want to see, or I don't want to share any anything that might be sensitive. So we'll go to portal, the Azure portal, and we'll pop in, and I'm going to start the process of waking the database up. And let's see here. It is currently paused, but that's okay. Query editor, login as me. And this is going to take a minute because its database is sleeping. It's currently resuming. Pardon me. Goodness. Let's have some coffee. Okay, so this is spinning up. And so let's go into filter townsfolk. Go to the definition here. And NPC filter, row model, that's the output type. And townsperson API filter equals new townsperson filter. Well, I need to map that user ID, right? So let's do that. User ID equals filter.userid. And user ID is not yet on the townsperson filter, it appears. So let's add that. Yep, here it is. Public nullable string, because we're not always necessarily going to want to do that. Got set. Save that, close this. Here we go. Call and await the API. So NPC API, filter townsfolk. Let's go to the implementation of this. Here we are, up in the character workloads. I want to expand this. Here we go. And all it's doing is it's passing my filter, which is a townsperson filter, into the townsperson manager. So let's go to that implementation. Here we are. And we can shrink this down just a scooch. And it's setting up the op result filter to NPC access filter. We're going to need to alter this extension method so that it also receives the user ID. So we'll pop this guy open and user ID equals filter.userid. And it looks like NPC access filter hasn't got a property for that. So we'll add it. Easy peasy. Prop nullable string user ID. Save it. Close it. Model transformers is now happy. So we can close that. And we're going to need to go back to our townsfolk manager. So right click, go to implementation. Go to implementation. Here we are. And I want to bump this over here. Come on. Boop. All right, so we've mapped our filter to the resource access version of that filter, and now we need to go to filter NPCs on the SQL provider. Pardon me. And we need to extend the actual filter logic here a little bit. So, string, and I should push this up top. User ID filter equals filter.userid. Boop. Now I did last night clean up the data types on the SQL model and the NPC access model and the townsfolk model and all of that stuff. I did all that stuff already. Now to add the new user ID clause, all I need to do is if string.is null or white space, and that has a capital S, yes I know, and UserId filter, if that's false, then we will add that clause to our iQueryable. So query equals query dot where, and that looks pretty good. And I should probably, yeah, I'm gonna. There's a better way of doing case-insensitive string comparison. Hey, what's up? Bigfoot is for real for sure. I'm recovering from COVID, but I'm vertical today at least, so that's a step in the right direction. I am, as I like to say, on the correct side of the dirt. So everything else is a detail. I'm feeling significantly better than I did this time last week. Yeah, thanks. All right, so this is a decent way of doing string equality comparison. This is a better way of doing string equality comparison, but it's really clumsy. Yeah, this is my second go round with COVID, so it's not exactly a brand new experience for me, but it doesn't mean it's pleasant. I'm gonna pop in here. Whoop! No, what are you doing? Go away. Let's come in here. What's the way in C# .NET to do case insensitive string comparison? Calling .toUpper on both strings is getting dull. Oh, I think I need to leave .toUpper in place. Yes, I am using the mic on my AirPods. I haven't gone down the slippery slope of adding a off-board microphone. Yeah, excuse me. So yeah. Pardon me. I look like someone famous. I've gotten that once or twice. I can never remember who though. Okay, that's right. And will that string comparer work if I use it as part of a where clause in an entity framework query? Because sometimes entity framework will throw up all over you if you try to use fancy methods. Yeah, who is it? Bigfoot? I'm curious. I don't even know who Ernest Kalimov is. I'll have to Google that later. Okay. To list. Form a case insensitive compare. Okay, yeah, I do have to use the toUpper thing. You know what? I'm going to take the bait. Let's see. I'll pop open a new Safari window just for laughs. Ernest Kalimov. KH. Who is this guy? Giga Chad is a real person. Oh, I don't know if that's flattering or not. I don't think I look anything like this dude. He looks like that wood chopping guy on TikTok, but like gone horribly wrong. No, the beard is just pure laziness. All right, so I do need to use 2upper on this. To upper, boop. And that's about all I need there, I think. Yep, okay. So, let's drop a breakpoint right here. Oh, I don't think we look like twins at all. He's like a big, honking, burly dude. I'm like a little, chubby, soft, flabby computer nerd. All right, so let's spin this up. But what Marvel character am I? Oh, gosh. These days I'm feeling like Wade Wilson. Oh, no, this isn't Steve Miller in the background. This is White Bat Audio. It's sort of like dark wave, dark electronica type stuff. Like, which Marvel character am I? I am Wade Wilson before the stuff that turned him into Deadpool, so I'm like the weenie version. All right, so we're up into our filter. And UserId filter is that. Species filter and vocation are both null. And let's fire the lasers. There we go. Good. We got all of our NPCs back. Now, the reason we have all of these guys is because I just blanket assigned. Oh my gosh, nice pool. Ha! Yeah, without the super healing and the ability to be fighty and stuff. Pardon me. So let's test this with a different user that doesn't have any characters saved to them yet. So we'll pop in here and the user ID on this one is significantly different. So let's continue. There are no characters found. My filter seems to be working. So good. But the downside of that is this kind of sucks for anybody that's trying to create new characters or access characters and stuff like that. So we're gonna need to figure out what needs doing, if anything needs doing, to save these NPCs locked to whoever made them. So find async NPC ID. Okay. We're going to row model, go to definition. Here's that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Pardon me. Golly. I feel like we're going to need to start all the way out in the UI. So we'll need the NPC service proxy. Not going to need the NPC list raiser or the routes or the app state provider or program. But let's pop open create npc.raiser. And that's the list, view NPC. And we need to go into onSave NPC in the page model. On save NPC. All right. And we'll go to save NPC. NPC client model. Okay. First thing we got to do on the NPC client model is make sure we've got the townsperson. Good. And we're going to need to, excuse me, add a method we're just going to make it internal, void set owner string owner ID. And if NPC.UserId does not equal owner ID, we're just going to return. We're going to silently return because we're not going to allow somebody to claim ownership of another NPC. Note, if we ever allow NPCs to be shared as read only, but do allow another user to make a copy of the NPC, this is where we'll make that change, probably. And underscore NPC dot user ID equals owner ID. Aha, okay. So private set. Is townsperson a record? No, it's a class. And I'm going to have to make this public. And void set owner. And I'm going to do the exact same constraint on this method as I did on the other one. If, oh, goodness, user ID is not equal to null. Now, string dot is null or white space user ID. No user ID equals false, and also user ID does not equal user ID. We're just going to return. Otherwise, user ID equals user ID. NPC dot set user ID owner ID. There we go. So NPC client model set owner create NPC.razor on save, pop in here, save NPC. And I'm gonna need so we'll save this and drop a bookmark right here because that's where I want to come back to. All these things, all of these. Good, there's app context. There we go. Get rid of that. Yes, go away. And var user ID equals app context dot get current user. If current user doesn't exist, hydrate it. And if user ID equals null, we're going to bounce. Yeah, that'll have to do. Otherwise, we're going to go NPC model dot set owner user ID. Oh, duh. User ID dot user ID. Well, that's awkward. So let's just rename this current user. There we go. And that should plumb out. All right. Just because I'm feeling silly, pop up in here, come to the query editor, log in as me, and select distinct user ID from userdata.npcs, run, Groovy. And I have one result there right now. And I'm not going to pull that over onto my current screen. It's just a simple SQL query. So let's test this change. And all of the characters I've made so far have been made as one account. And so I'm going to test this as the other account. So I'm going to sign in as me at thatdeveloperdad.com, who is my other test persona user. And we'll sign in. I'm pretty sure this user hasn't got access to the AI stuff. But that's okay. I can still create a stub. So I'm going to pop that down and continue. No characters found. Well, let's create one. And yeah, okay. We'll create a gnome farmer who started off life as a sage. That works. Maybe he's an herb farmer. He decided that as a sage he didn't have enough time on his hands, so he rued his decision to become a sage and went into farming. So we've saved our townsperson, theoretically. Let's go back to the list. Oh, I might have goofed something up there. That's okay. Save. And let's see if it actually saved. User ID went in as blank. Well, that's no darn good. So we're going to have to step through this stuff. Ooh, excuse me. So let's come back down to the page model. We're going to drop a breakpoint right here. And pop open the UI again. Save. Current user, user ID, that's correct. Let's take a look at the NPC model. I want to make sure that propagated out. NPC, user ID is null. Okay. Pardon me. Man, COVID sucks, yo. Oh, what are you doing? Stop debugging. Silly thing. We're going to have to step into the set owner thing. That's okay. I'm probably just doing something silly. In fact, I know I'm doing something silly. Right in here. There. Of course, NPC user ID, when it's null, is not going to equal the owner ID. So I only want to do that comparison if NPC user ID has a value. That's where I made the goof. Excuse me. So we'll try it again. And sign in. actually want to select star from userdata.npcs, run. And let's do this. I'm going to clean up my data table a little bit. Where user ID does not equal that, run. How about user ID is null? I am so out of practice with SQL stuff. It's bad. Okay, good. One thing that I am not out of practice on with SQL is this little thing that I'm about to do here. Begin tran, roll back tran, delete from userdata.npcs where user ID is null. I have seen so many SQL disasters over the course of my career that whenever I do a destructive database operation, even against a test database, which this is, I always do my SQL queries, my destructive SQL queries the first time inside a rollback. And then I check to make sure that the results are what I wanted them to be. And then I run it. And now let's run this. And I still have a bunch of records for my other account. I've gotten to the point where if I'm writing updates or deletes, I'll even write the where clause before I write the rest of the query. Okay, we got no characters found. Create, yeah, what the heck, we'll just save her. She's a retired servant who grew up as an urchin. All right, first thing I got to do is step into this logic. Okay, we got to here, we got past our quick escape clause. And we'll step over. Good. Now we can fall out. And I want to make certain that the NPC model, we have to plumb in here. There's that user ID. Good. So I'm going to pop all the way out to my SQL provider. And we're just going to put a breakpoint here just inside save NPC. I really ought to change all of these names to have async on them, just for consideration of future me. But let's continue. We're up here. Let's make sure that all of my mapping stuff worked. Okay, NPC ID is null. That's good. User ID is this. Servant retired, blah, 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 blah. Now we still have a small problem in this logic here because we are converting this whole thing to a SQL model and jamming it into the database without an ID. So the ID node in the character details JSON is unpopulated. So we got to come up with a way to make that correct. But the important thing is we have our user ID. All right. And I could pop this open now. I'm going to get rid of this begin trend, rollback trend, delete where null thing. And let's go ahead and run this. And we now have 2 distinct user IDs in my NPCs table. And that's awesome. So that means we should be able to go back to our list, and we've got our half-orc servant who is retired. And we can view her, and so on and so forth. Now, you might be wondering where my Generate the AI Details button is. The current user that I am logged in as, DevDad, isn't part of the paid users group, so that button is hidden. But that's pretty cool. We've got that set up. And just to see, I'm going to log out and I'm going to sign in as me, because there is another path to that save button. And I'm going to sign in as other me, and we'll go to the NPCs and we'll create. Yeah, okay. Let's generate a female elf healer who started off life as a charlatan. Pale complexion, silky black hair. I bet she used to be a drow or a shadow elf. I don't know. We're going to find out. Often adorned in elegant flowing robes, cunning and resourcefully yet compassionate. Boogity boogity boo, blah blah blah, all of this stuff. And we'll save. And I'm just going to let this rip through. I'm not even going to bother stepping over any of this stuff. So we're looking for Alara Nightshade. And she'll be at the bottom of our list. And here she is. Thing of beauty. So, in between this morning and this afternoon, I need to insert some records into the database up in the cloud. And those records are going to define the subscription for each of my 2 login personas, and it's going to set up the quotas for those login personas. And I'm just going to set those up manually so that I don't have to monkey around with trying and failing to get the code to go yet, because the subscription and quota management code, at least the ones that create and update those sort of accounting records, are not going to be part of this application. They're going to be part of another suite of probably a microservice, maybe even just some Azure functions that do those updates in reaction to events that happen outside of the system. But I do want to start recording quota usage of storage and AI. And in order to do that, I have to have those records created. So I'm going to create them manually. And then this afternoon, we're going to start hooking in consume storage quota whenever we hit the save button on a new NPC. And then we're also going to work on recording the token consumption from an AI call, as well as the consumption of an NPC generation, because that's one of the other, there's currently 2 resources that I'm limiting in here. One of them is the number of NPCs that you have stored, and the other one is the number of NPCs you can generate during the period of a paid subscription time. And I'm currently setting those at 100 each. I might flex those up or down depending on how I see the costs shake out during pre-launch testing and stuff. But that's going to get us another huge step closer to being able to invite other people to use this thing. So cool. I am going to call it a morning. I'm very happy that I got save associating with the logged in user. That's an awesome amount of progress for basically 40 minutes of work. And thanks for hanging out. And I'll be back around 1 p.m. Time is a little fuzzy for me these days because COVID is wreaking havoc on my temporal circuits, along with most of my other body systems. But I will be back this afternoon, and we're going to start working on actually implementing all of that quota work that we put into place last week. Early last week, before I ended up having to take Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off, and that sucked. But I'll see y'all this afternoon. I'm going to go take care of me, you take care of you, and hopefully we'll see you again real soon. Until then, happy coding. Be good to yourselves.